for listening. I'll just sort of share with you a little anecdote from this morning when I arrived. The REBA team were poking fun at me because I couldn't work out how to transfer a presentation from me to them, yet I'm here talking to you about US benefit technology innovation, so I'm going to try my best, bear with me. I'm seeing a few friendly faces amongst you, but for those of you who don't know me, I've been in global reward roles for about 15 or so years now, mostly FTSE 100 companies, different sort of states of play, but mostly sort of transformational kind of situations. And the reason I'm talking to you today mostly is because my most recent role at Shire, I was head of global benefits for this amazing progressive organisation which has had an exponential growth over the last few years. When I joined, we had about 25 countries. When I left, we had 100. I said we, formerly we. Shire now has 22,000 employees across those 100 countries, and a great story to tell. It's a biotechnology firm first and foremost, so underpinning its values and everything that it does is innovation. So kind of a good example, hopefully, for you today. And the US is a key market for Shire. There are about 14,000 employees there. A great deal of time and energy, as you can imagine, was spent servicing those 14,000 employees and looking at and analysing their benefits proposition to ensure that it was kind of keeping up with that expectation of being innovative and forward-thinking. Quite a sophisticated workforce as well. So just sort of bear that in mind in terms of the things that we've been doing. And basically, the three things I'm going to talk to you about today really are initiatives that were introduced during my time at Shire, my team, and they were all part of a sort of broader organisational strategy to further the digital health agenda. Clearly, as a biotechnology firm, that's a natural thing for us to focus on, not for everybody, but also there's a lot in there about sort of consumerism and some of those themes you've been hearing about today, personalisation. One thing I will say, and here are the three things, a little bit cryptic, is I'm going to kind of give you a big health warning, because I think I may have been bigged up to be telling you all about what's going to be happening in the next 2 years. The US market is, from a benefits perspective, as many of you will know, is very different, particularly when you get into the medical space. So we have very different payer system, very different structures and very different kind of scenarios. So I'm hoping that you're going to find this interesting. Whether you run off today and go, I must implement this, blah, 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 I don't think so please don't sort of, think that's going to happen. But I just want you to remain interested if you can, and, sit back, drink your coffee, watch a couple of videos. That's my plan. And the three things. So one is a sort of novel diagnostic tool which harnesses the sort of crowdsourcing technology, which is sort of not usually existing in the benefit space, but something that you might quite like. Then there's, we've talked about engagement platforms and that kind of thing, but the interactive decision support tool is a slightly different take on that. So it's a very intelligent, out of the ordinary platform which asks you questions and comes up with recommendations. And the third one is, I've tried to play with words there. I'm not sure if it works, voice over IGP, but it's sort of ultimate convenience in medical diagnosis. So it's a sort of virtual GP type scenario. Okay, so first up, out of those three, we're going to talk about CrowdMed. This is a very clever online portal which harnesses the wisdom of crowds to solve difficult medical cases. Before I kind of go into it, I'll play you a little video. Some of it may sort of go over your head slightly because we'll talk a bit about what it means afterwards. But listen to CrowdMed's CEO Jared. Can't remember his surname, but Jared, and have a little think while you do that.
Medicine is based around this idea of one medical specialist, usually a doctor, working with one patient. Because of how much medical knowledge there is in existence today, it's simply impossible for one doctor, no matter how brilliant, to keep up with it. But crowds don't have this limitation. A crowd collectively can essentially be infinitely wise. And that's why we believe that crowds are in a much better position to solve difficult medical cases than an individual expert, no matter how brilliant they are. So CrowdMed is a website that harnesses crowd wisdom to solve difficult medical cases online. We're a technology company first and foremost, and it's truly our software that drives CrowdMed. Our process is 100% automated from when a patient first visits our site all the way until they get their final results. So that, of course, makes it infinitely scalable. And that wouldn't be possible without our software. The trick to accurately crowdsourcing something, especially as complex as medical answers, is having the right mechanism in place to separate signal, good answers, and there's also going to be noise, or bad answers. And what we've developed CrowdMed to be is the optimal mechanism for separating signal and noise. Community moderation features, a reputation system, a point allocation system to assign accurate probabilities to the different suggestions that come up. And it really takes all of these technical mechanisms working together synergistically to assure that our patients end up with only the best answers coming out at the bottom of the funnel. And we won't be happy until we've truly made medicine a team sport worldwide.
Okay, so things such as algorithms, words such as synergistically, maybe not ideal for the graveyard shift, but I think there's a lot of technical language in there, but the basic premise of CrowdMed is really simple. So for those 1 in 3 families who have experienced an undiagnosed medical condition, an average cost of around $10,000 in the US per case, what CrowdMed is doing is trying to solve that problem. Really simple in terms of how it works. You can sort of buy into the platform as a private individual, but CrowdMed also collaborates with employers such as Shire to provide this service at a very low dollar fee. What happens is an employee goes in, registers their case, a community of medical detectives essentially review the case if they think they can help, if they've had some experience, and there are about 15,000 medical detectives currently working on the CrowdMed platform. They essentially list a diagnosis, all of the algorithms working in the background and whatnot come up with the 10 most viable solutions to that undiagnosed medical condition. The individual then takes that to their primary care physician and kind of gets probably further than they would have got in about 50 visits prior to that. So it's, like I said, quite US specific, but I just think it's clever because there's a huge cost associated, and I think the typical cost saving involved for an individual is about $205 a month. So that's quite significant. And there you go. In terms of the benefits of this, it sort of speaks to them there, so there's 4 bubbles, but one of the really key things there is time and money. So obviously, when you're going through this sort of difficult medical condition scenario, whether it's the employee or a family member, it requires a lot of time investment, appointments, etc., and the money for all of those visits. So I think overall that's a key piece. But also for Shire particularly, it was sort of linking back to that digital health agenda, a real demonstration of our investment in the health and wellness agenda and in people's general health and well-being. So it's kind of it's not the biggest part of any wellness offering, and it's very US specific, but it's clever and it's very sort of advanced technology. And before, I think probably one of the questions that people are thinking about is just to preempt. One of the concerns people had when we introduced this was, well, who are these people solving the cases? And just to reassure you, what CrowdMed do, and I'm not working for them, is you have to be a registered physician. So it's not just anybody going, yeah, I had like a swollen leg and I went to the doctors and it was X. They are registered physicians, and they do get compensated through the CrowdMed system for their work, but they have to give top-rated diagnosis to be compensated. So it's it's a clever little platform. We'll do questions at the end, so hold that thought. What we'll talk about next is Jellyvision. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this, but it's an employee engagement platform, decision support tool, all things to all men essentially. But the clever or different thing about this is that it takes the company's plan information and builds a platform based on that, and then asks the employee questions about their circumstances, and at the end of that spits out a recommendation in terms of what they should be buying or choosing to maximize their benefit offering or their sort of benefit selection. I'm going to really say sorry, it's a bit of an advertising video, so I might just finish it before the end because there's a load of stuff at the end which isn't relevant, but it was the sort of most relevant piece for this afternoon. So meet Alex.
Hey, I'm Alex, your benefits counselor. Let me ask, does picking out your benefits ever feel a little overwhelming? Yeah, sometimes there's a lot of information. So, based on everything you've said, drum roll please. I don't have a drum. This plan may be the best fit for you.
That's a bold statement there, isn't it? Integrates with every HR platform. Not sure that is absolutely true, but it integrated with ours, and that was Workday, so we're all good. Now, sorry about, it is very US specific. May need to work on adjusting it for a UK audience, different voice, maybe not the drum roll, I don't know, depends on your organisation, but it worked for us, and I think the particularly helpful thing about this for Shire was sort of embedding and driving program change. So we had some key changes to our medical plans in the US to sort of drive sustainability, adding in sort of a more consumerist approach, more co-payments, more deductibles, all of that good stuff. And it's quite a confusing proposition for people, even when they know that and they use the plans day in, day out. And this slide here just gives you an idea, very basic, but there weren't 4 plan options for Shire, there were 2, but it just gives the employee, based on a set of questions like how many times do you go to the emergency room, how many prescriptions do you take a month, how many visits to your primary care physician, that kind of thing. And it spits out at the end, right, so here are all the plans, so in this case there are 4 plans. Here's what your projected spend would be with each plan based on your own personal circumstances, and that's where it comes up with a recommendation. So hopefully you'll agree that's reasonably clever. And for Shire, but generally speaking, I think there are these sort of 3 areas of value in terms of this sort of Meet Alex piece. Certainly, obviously, things like understanding of the employee's out-of-pocket costs, because in the US market, you may have a payroll deduction of X, which might be $10,000 a year. Your actual cost could be, $14,000, $16,000, $25,000, depending on your utilization. And it's really important for people to know that. And that's not an easy thing, but this gets to that. It lets them know you can model how the plans work, therefore you can make the most of them. People then understand the true value of the organization's investment in those plans, and in terms of action, most of all, make the right decision for them. What could be better. And then, trigger finger. And then for employers, really it's kind of all of that, plus what at Shire we found was that we had much higher enrollment rates because of all that I've said. Therefore increased engagement with the plans and that overall ability to sort of drive change and put decisions, put the power into the people's hands to make good decisions essentially. So that was Meet Alex. We'll go on to my last one. This This is an interesting one. I'm really not sure that it would work for today's society in the UK, but virtual visits or telemedicine, it's sort of the phrase is used interchangeably, but the premise is, from a US perspective, it's really clear that if you have a serious medical concern, something that's urgent, you go to the emergency room. But if it's non-urgent, there are many different ways that you can receive treatment. So you could go to your physician, a specialist, you could go to an out-of-hours clinic. There are a million different ways to receive that care. And some are disproportionately expensive, some are less expensive, some are, horribly expensive. So what this tries to address, so virtual visits, is like helping to strike the balance. So allowing people access to a medical opinion, but not requiring them to go to an emergency room, for example, and pay out $1,000 for that. So you can see from my slide, there's a little sort of map of how that works. But essentially, it's talking to a doctor on your laptop or your mobile phone device, what have you, having a virtual appointment. So it is just like, you go into the virtual waiting room, you register your appearance, you wait for the appropriate amount of time, given this is the US and the way the system works, it's not 45 minutes to an hour and a half like you might do in an NHS waiting room. It's more like sort of 1 to 3 minutes, that kind of thing. But you speak to a genuine primary care physician, and you hopefully then get a diagnosis, prescription, whatever, or you're referred on to more appropriate care. So this just sort of takes you through the benefits of this. I think convenience pretty much speaks for itself. You can sit in your living room and speak to a doctor within 3 minutes. There's not much to say there. Cost at point of use, emergency room, accident and emergency, about $1,000 to $1,300 a visit. This is about $40, so they're using less of their dollar healthcare spend on a health visit. And there's obvious other benefits, such as reducing that productivity cost of having someone away for an appointment or away being ill, gets them a diagnosis quicker and treatment as they need it. And in terms of integration with the medical plan, those of you who understand about US medical plans and know how those work, this is fully integrated, and actually many of the major providers such as UHC have their own virtual visit proposition. So simple, she says. And just, I should click back. One thing to know, just so that you can kind of understand the scale of this and just how common it is. There were actually about 1 million virtual visits in the US last year, so 1 million, may have been the same person, but 1 million virtual visits in 2016. And in terms of companies offering this as part of their medical plan proposition, prevalence went from about 48% to something like 75%. So, vast majority of companies offering this as a service. It's not just a passing trend. Again, don't know if it'll work so well in the NHS context, but depending on where you sit in the political spectrum of that, perhaps one day it will be something for us to consider. Really, so that was a very brief whistle-stop tour. I have time for questions. Before we do questions, so I would just say that again, hopefully the objective wasn't to reinforce for you to give you something to go away and do, but more to give you something to go away and think about. So hopefully I've achieved that.
You have, Jane.
Good.
I think what's important is that some of the things that you're raising aren't only US-based. There's probably a few organisations here who are using that virtual GP service here already. AXA is offering it, Bupa's offering it. It's coming here, and we constantly get influenced by what's happening in the US. So getting an insight what's happening there is important, because it will start to come over here, even though the context is different. So thank you very much. I have got a question for you before I let you go and before we finish off the session. And it's quite a popular one that's come up. How did, going back to Jellyvision, how did you manage the risk of offering recommendations? Was there a risk?
No, very simply, it's the US, so the risk is pretty minimal. I think there's more risk actually, I don't want to be facetious, but there's more risk in not offering a recommendation, because the risk of people not being educated enough to make the right decision means that they could be spending a lot more than they need to be. So yeah, I'd say it's probably more risky not offering the recommendation. It would be different if you're talking about sort of maybe a European environment, but yes.
That's fine. And is what you offered in the UK quite similar to what you offered in the US, or was it quite different?
So naturally, part of what we were trying to do over time was get some sort of similarity, ensuring that in terms of the skin in the game is similar. So we didn't want people in the UK to enjoy completely full 100% reimbursement for all of their medical expenses, but yet, to have, 60% of them reimbursed is unpalatable. So there's a balance, and it's that whole sort of thinking globally and working out how to sort of do the smoothing that means that the UK the principles are similar, but yeah.
Classic global strategy, keep the principles but do it different locally. Thank you very much. That was really, really good. Thank you.